This is going to be a video on the Python series. We're going to be going over web scraping and kind of working with images. But as you can see, I kind of have my terminal open here. And the reason for that is there are two packages that you need to install before you can follow along if you want to, and to perform the procedures that I will go through the lesson here. So the two packages you need to install are requests and bs4. So if you want to install them right now, the easiest way you can do it is just go to your terminal and then do pip install requests. If I can spell requests, all right. As you can see, I already downloaded that and it says requirement already satisfied. If you're just downloading this, it will automatically download it and then you will have it just there. So just don't worry if you don't have this already satisfied there. You just need to download it and it will be fine. And then also you need to pip install the bs4 library. And the reason for that is we're going to be using Beautiful Soup in this lecture to kind of work with the images. And as you can see, again, requirement already satisfied. So I already have that downloaded, but again, just pip install bs4 and you'll have that all set with both the requests library as well as the bs4 library. So now we are completely ready to go onto Jupyter Notebook and go through the web scraping lecture. I'll see you guys over there. All right, everyone. So as you can see, we are in the Jupyter Notebook. And also, as you can see, I do have a couple of comments here. These comments are to show you guys what I'm going to be doing through the process of this, through the process of web scraping. And hopefully it will also give you guys an insight into what I'll be doing next. And if you understand this, great. But if not, I will be, of course, going through the code and explaining it as we go on. But anyways, let's get started. So the very first thing about web scraping, of course, is you need to use a site to scrape, correct? So the site that I chose to scrape was the Wikipedia page for Stanford University, as you can see here. And what I want to do is, if you can see this logo here, the Stanford's logo, I'm going to be inspecting this element and then also taking this and scraping this image here. So again, I'll be essentially scraping this image and using it and storing it as a file essentially. And something cool that I want to show you guys before we get actually started into the code here is, if you're on Mac, if you use double or right click, you can do inspect element and it will bring you all this piece of code here. And this highlighted code here demonstrates this image here, or this logo of Stanford. And again, all of these highlighted text or all these highlighted pieces of code here demonstrates, for example, certain text, as you can see, that was highlighted from other images here. Again, everything that you can see here, all are code, of course, and you can scrape them. But for our purposes and in this video, we're going to just be scraping Stanford's logo, just Stanford's logo. All right, so that's pretty cool. But now, of course, let's get into the code before we actually scrape the site and use this image. So the very first thing, of course, we need to do is import the packages that we installed through pip install, as I showed you in my terminal. The first thing you can do is import requests. So import requests, cool. And then we need to use the attribute requests.get. And then we also need to pass in the URL of this site, which is this guy, as a string. And let me just simply do Command C. You can do that too. And let me then write out requests.get, pass that as a string. There we go. And then also, just to make our process easier here, we will pass in a variable name to this piece of code, all this code here. So I'll just write out cool bro or cool man is equivalent to that. So we have that there. The second thing we need to do is do the same for our bs4 package or library. Import that. So we need to do import bs4. Then we use the attribute Beautiful Soup and .text. The .text will be this, so we will write coolman.text and then also write LXML. So let me write that out. So bs4.beautifulsoup coolman.text and then LXML. And then we'll also pass in a variable name for this too, for all that code. So I'll write soup just to make that simple as possible. And I also wanted to then, before we write out the .select, so that would be soup.select, I want to show you guys what all of this looks like actually, because I think that's pretty cool and interesting to see. So let me insert a sub below and then just call soup, and it will, there you go. So as you can see here, this is the whole site here. All of the code and classes, the attributes in HTML. But that's just the whole site here. Everything from images to text. So that's pretty neat. And just FYI, if you guys know HTML, that's awesome. If not, that's alright. We'll be just using a specific part of HTML, which is classes, and I'll show you guys how you can do that. So no worries if you are not familiar with HTML. But moving aside from this part here, let's write out this soup.select. And that's where we will call in the specific class for that Stanford logo image. Alright, soup.select. Now, again, as I mentioned, I want to use a class for this image here. So let's see here, let's analyze this. When you want to look for a class for a highlighted section, which is this image that I want, all this code here is highlighted, you have to look above it. So as you can see here, we have a class which is image, and then we also have a class here that says info box image. So if you use the class which is the image class, it's going to bring in all of the images. So not just this image, but for example, Stanford's actual logo, and then some of the professors here, founding president Stanford, the campus, all these images. But I just want this. So in that case, it's going to be the info box image class. So keep that in mind. We're going to be using the info box image class. And how we'll write that is dot info box image. In HTML format, the way you write this is a period beforehand or just a dot, and then info box image is our class here. So let's write that out. There we go. As you can see, we have that class which is image, but essentially it's that info box image that we want. And another key thing you need to note is that we need to utilize the source. So if I can actually see that source, here we are, src, kind of not clear there, but it's going to be this here, co.svj.png. So that's the source. We'll be using that source to kind of extract that image and use it as a file. Okay. Now, the very next step we're going to do is, of course, I mentioned since we are utilizing, that should have been a contraction, we are utilizing an image class to take an image as our own file, we will pass it as a URL. Set a variable name to request.get. Okay, so what we need to do here is we need to, again, use the request.get attribute once again, but I will be passing in this source URL here as an actual, again, URL. So here's how it will look like, and I'll pass a variable name as well. So it'll be, let's say, cool guy. Again, that's just for random. Requests.get, and then add the HTTPS because we want that as a URL. And let me copy and paste that. There we go. Okay, so we have that all as a URL. Cool. And then if you want to check out the image file, just do the .content. So we passed all of this piece of code here as a variable which was cool guy, and then what you want to know and how you are sure that this is really an image that you are passing in or going to be passing out as a file, just write out the .content attribute. So it'll be cool guy .content, and there you go. All of this is readable by the computer here, of course not readable by us. That's not how we read code, but again, this is definitely going to be an image here. That's how you're sure that if it's a little bit convoluted essentially and kind of binary with numbers here, it's going to be an image file that you're passing out and going to be saving as a file. So that's awesome. So we're doing this correctly. Now the next step here, the next steps are just going to be all about working with files. So the first thing, of course, with files is we need to just use the f equals open, and then we need to use the wb method. So or mode is equal to wb. So let's write that out. F is equal to open. And then the file name, you can name this whatever. I guess I'll just put my name's file, opt-in file, and then we can put mode is equivalent to wb. All right. The next thing we need to do is f.write, because we're going to be writing this whole file, this whole image file here in this kind of binary code. So we just do f.write, and we just copy and paste that. And there you go. And then the last thing we need to do is just f.close to close the file so we can open it later on. And there you go. Now, all this is completed, but where's the file? So if you go to the notebook itself, and I named it my name file, this name, so let me search for that. Oh, one thing I forgot to do was to pass this as a .png. So, okay, one thing I forgot was .png, because this is a PNG file, and really important, I should have mentioned this, is when we name the file, you need to name it as a .png file, or whatever it could be. You need to also write a that file name, or file type, I should say. So .png, okay. Now it should be correct. There we go, there it is. You can see here that it's passed in opt-in file.png. Awesome, there it is. There is Stanford's logo. And you can just copy and paste this on your computer, and you'll just have this as your own file. You can use this now to edit it, to work with it, and the next video, in the next part, we'll actually be going over how to crop this image, kind of use tricks to kind of make it less transparent, more transparent. So the first step we did, of course, in this lecture was to scrape the Wikipedia website, open this as a file, store this as a file, and then use it as our own to work with it and have it as our, again, own file, and we can pass it in for whatever uses we want. But that concludes this lecture, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this part of the lecture of web scraping. The next, of course, lecture will be on how to work with this kind of image, crop it, and kind of just do stuff with it, such as transparency. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching again, and I will see you in the next video.